father, or you are involved in caring for children? If yes, then listen to Ask the Pediatricians every Thursday by 10 a.m. for insightful discussion on popular child health topics such as dangerous child health practices, immunization, infant feeding, developmental milestones, and so much more. You also get to ask questions on these topics and listen to answers to real-life child health issues by a pediatrician. Ask the Pediatricians Foundation is devoted to health education and information of parents and caregivers of children in the community to support you in raising healthy children. Don't miss Ask the Pediatricians with Dr. Gbemi because it's informative, educative, and interactive. Ask the Pediatricians Hour, the program for caring parents.
Hi everyone, and welcome to ATP Webinar. Hi, I'm Gbemisola Boyede. I'm a neurodevelopmental pediatrician, and today I'll be talking to us about normal development in children. As we can all see from the flyer, that is what we're going to be talking about today. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on whichever platform you're watching from. For those of you watching on our Facebook page, thank you so much for joining us. And those watching also on Fresh Waves Radio Facebook page, you are warmly welcome. For those watching on Instagram, thank you. And for those listening on Fresh Waves Radio, also Dr. Gbemi ATP Podcast, you're warmly welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. This program is brought to you by Ask the Pediatricians Foundation. Ask the Pediatricians Foundation is committed to the health and well-being of your children. And we do that through our online platforms where we educate parents and empower you on how to raise healthy children. We also do it through our community outreaches in various communities, and we've been doing this for almost 10 years. Actually, we're celebrating our 10th anniversary, and we are grateful for all the opportunity to have reached so many mothers, fathers, and their children. And we hope to continue to do that until no child in Nigeria, in Africa, and indeed the entire world dies from what is completely treatable and preventable. So this is one of the programs we do, giving you health information, health education, and so that you are well equipped in raising healthy children. And remember that if you have any questions about any issues as far as has to do with the health of your children, you can always come to us. Feel free to go to our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group. Our group is fully back on. We finally overcome the battle with Facebook. Our group is fully back on now, so you can ask your questions on our Facebook group from Mondays to Saturdays. From any time of the day, 24 hours, Mondays to Saturdays. Feel free to post your questions, and you're going to get a pediatrician perspective answer, and it's actually evidence-based, and it is something you can take to the bank. We answer thousands of questions every week, and we are happy to do that. We just want to make sure you know what to do when you have any concerns about the health of your children. And more importantly, we like to promote. We don't want to just tell you what to do when children are already sick. We want to actually prevent illness. We want to make sure you know what to do ahead, and that is the most important thing, because prevention is usually better than care. So that is what we do on ATP. So thank you so much for joining me this beautiful day, whatever time of the day you're listening or watching. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to be talking to us today about our children's development. This is one of those frequently asked questions, and this is why I'm addressing this topic. We've done it before, but we did need to do a refresher. Next to the issue of food, my child is not eating, which is, I think, the most frequently asked questions to the pediatricians. I think the next question is about the child development, because all parents are always doing child development assessment. So it is not only us pediatricians that do developmental assessment. Parents are constantly doing it, even when they are not aware that's what they're doing. They are constantly comparing their children with other children that were born around the same time, and they wonder, why is your child able to do this and my child is not able to do that? And we get loads and loads of questions about it. Really, first time mothers coming to ask us why their 4-month-old or 6-month-old is not yet crawling. Sometimes as pediatrician, you just want to roll your eyes and tell parents, come on, chill. It's not that fast. Anyway, but I think it's important, jokes apart, for parents to understand what is normal. I think the issue is that sometimes we don't know what is normal, and then we tend to worry. I guess parents have a lot of anxiety about their children not eating or their weight. I think the next other area that tends to give parents anxiety is their child's development. Okay, if they think their child is behind in their development, they tend to worry. And from my own experience, answering thousands of questions every week on our Facebook group, I found that most of those anxiety that parents have are actually born out of ignorance of what is a normal development. Okay, and so they tend to worry unnecessarily. So I'm here to just make sure that you don't have to do that. So I'm going to be telling us what is a normal in development in children, so you know what to look out for. And then I'm going to tell us the currency for which by which we measure development in children. We call them milestones. So I'm going to be telling us the common milestones which you as parents can remember. I don't need you to remember everything, but at least the common ones, so that you have those. Those are the ones people tend to ask us about anyway. We will talk about the common milestones. Then I'm going to tell you at what point we want you to come and see us, about your child's development. If you think your child development is not normal, at what point should you come and see us? So these are the things we are going to talk about today. So I hope you will sit down and listen, and I hope you will learn. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always ask us our Facebook group, or you can send me an email, Dr. Gbemisola at askthepediatricians.com or askthepediatricians@gmail.com. All right, so let's talk about development. There are two things that are unique to children. I always like to start my talk anytime I'm talking about development in children that way. There are two major things that make children different from adults. One is growth. So it's not on you. That's why it's not surprising to me that those are the two areas where parents tend to worry a lot. Two things differentiate adults from children. Children grow. So most time children are born weighing 3 kilos or 2.5. Some are very ambitious and they start at like 4 kilos or even 5 kilos. So children are born small. That's the point. But then before you know it, they are growing very rapidly. And by the end of 1 year, that child is now 10 kilos. By the end of 2 years, the child is 12 kilos. By the end of 3 years, they are 14 kg. That is the average, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, they are in teenage years, adolescence, and they're almost as tall as their parents or even weighing as close to them as well. So bottom line is a child grows until they get to adulthood. That is one of the things that is different from in terms of children and adults. Whereas adults, most of us, we all assume to be 70 kg in medicine. Of course, we know that's not the weight of everybody, but bottom line, everybody as adults are assumed to have, you're expected to just be the same weight year in, year out, and you're not expected to change. But children are still growing. So children's weight increase, their size increase. So that is what we call growth. That is one of the unique feature of childhood. And that is why pediatricians, we are always measuring growth. So every time you come to us, every blessed time you come into a pediatrician's office, we are putting that child on the scale. We are checking the weight. We are measuring the growth, because that is one of the things that, you know, we pediatricians do, because we expect our children to grow, and we worry when our children are not growing. So we say, oh, why is this child's weight the same? Why is it going down? So pediatricians tend to monitor growth, because that is a unique feature or characteristic of children. Another thing we also need to measure, maybe we don't do as much, but we ideally should be doing, is development, because children not only increase in size, which is growth, children also increase in terms of the skills or their ability, and that is what we call development. Okay, and that's actually what I'm going to talk about today. I've talked about growth earlier in the year, we've talked about weights and all that, but today I'm going to be talking about development, the increase in the children's abilities is what we call development. So when a child is born, they are born completely helpless, completely dependent on the parent for everything. That child cannot move. They can't even barely raise their head. So somebody has to carry them from one place to another. Somebody has to feed them. Somebody has to do everything for them. All they do is just cry. And we all come running to solve whatever needs they have. That is a completely helpless and dependent human species. That is who a child is, a baby. But within a few years, that child is going to be completely independent, completely able to do their own thing. By the time they're about 18, which is the cutoff for us as pediatricians, when they become adults, they are completely able to live on their own, go anywhere they like, do everything they go to university and all that. They are completely independent of parents and everything. So that process from that child being born completely helpless and dependent on their parents for everything, to that phase where they are completely independent, able to do everything for themselves, even able to live on their own, able to go vote for who is going to be the next president, is what we call development. Okay, so that is what development is. It's about the acquisition of skills. So a child who is born completely unable to even lifts their head in the newborn period, by the end of 1 year, they are walking. They're able to walk without, they don't need the parents to move around. So when they were born, you have to carry them, you have to do everything for them. By the time they're about 1 year old, they are walking on their own. And by the time they are 2 year old, they are jumping. And then by 5, they are riding their bikes and stuff. That is what we call development. So that child is now acquiring skills and abilities and able to do things for themselves. And the more they get older, as they grow in size, we expect that they also acquire skills and able to do things for themselves. And that is the development. So growth and development sometimes go hand in hand. And so that is what we call development. And growth has to do with increase in size. So it has to do with eating food and then having more cells, getting bigger, getting taller. However, development has to do with only one major organ in the body. Development has to do with the brain. Brain is actually what is responsible for development. So the brain is an very important organ when we're talking about development, because the brain of a child is not fully matured. Maybe 75% grow. I mean, the brain is just about 75% of its size when the baby is born. However, as the baby grows, the brain also grows, and there's a lot of changes going on in the brain, and it is those changes on the brain that is responsible for the child acquiring skills and that is what we measured as developmental milestones. So each of those skills that the child acquire, we call them milestones. So for example, the child is born, their head, if you carry them, their neck just falls to whichever side you carry. But by the time they're about 3 months, they're able to actually keep that head in alignment with the rest of the body, what we call neck control. And by the time about 5 to 6 months, they're able to sit with some pillow support behind them. That is, another milestone. Then they start to crawl. For those who are going to crawl, that is another milestone. And then one day they just get up and stand, and then one day they start to walk. Those different skills they acquire along the road is what we call milestones. So the neck control, the sitting, and the crawling, and then the walking. Those we call developmental milestones. But what is responsible for all these milestones is the brain. Is the brain development, is the brain maturation that is responsible for the children acquiring these skills. And it is the accumulation of these skills that we call child development. Okay, so I hope I've been able to explain what development is. So now development can be normal, which is what we expect, but sometimes for other reasons, some children's development can be slower, what we call delayed, or can be different. I will come back to that towards the end of my presentation, but today I'm going to start with talking about what is normal development, because that is what parents worry about. So I've seen people ask me, why is a 4-month-old not crawling? And I'm like, what? Okay, that is not what we expect at 4 months old. So now, there are some things, principles around development that we need to understand. So I've already told us what is responsible for development. Development has to do with the brain maturation. So in other words, the brain is a very critical organ when we're talking about development. Everything that affects the brain can affect a child's development. So it's so important that we get that clearly. We will talk more about that when we get to the abnormal development. Another thing that there are sequence to development. We tend to use the word cephalocorder. Forget the big grammar. Basically, what we mean is that development tends to follow certain pattern. So, for example, I expect a child to have neck control before they will be able to sit. I expect them to sit before they will be able to crawl. I expect them to crawl before they'll be able to stand. I expect them to stand before they will walk. That is what we call, it's starting from the head and going down to the feet. So that is what we call cephal is the head, corda is the lower part of the body. So that is what we mean by development being. So there's a sequence of development, where to start and where to end, and there's a sequence as well. It follows a normal sequence. So a child is not going to walk first and then later go and develop neck control. That is not how development works. Now, when we talk about development, there are different areas, or what we like to call domains of development. Okay, a lot of parents tend to focus on what we call the gross motor, but there are other areas of development. So development is not just the child sitting, walking, crawling. There are other areas of development, the child talking, that is language and communication. The child using their hands. So most time when children are born, they cannot take anything. Their hands is just by the side. But later on, you see that they begin to move their hands. If you give them something like a rattle, at 3 months, they can hold that rattle in their hands and then shake it. Then by 4 months, they can bring their hands together in midline. And then later on, they can actually pick something small up with their hand. Before, they would just grab everything with the whole hand, what we call palmar grabs. Then later, they begin to use just the forefinger and the first finger, what we call pincer grips. So again, then they begin to hold pen, they can begin to scribble, then they begin to write, they can put things in their mouth. So there are different things. So development is not just the walking, which is the one people tend to access a lot, but there are other aspects of development. So there are different domains. You can, depending on how you like to divide them, most people would like to divide them into like about 4. It can be up to 6 or even more, depending on what you're looking at. But I'll keep it simple for us. I'll just talk about 4 of them. So we talk about gross motor. So gross motor domain, that is when that has to do with the children, neck control, walking, running. So anything they have to do with the movements or the legs, that is what we call gross motor. So walking, running, jumping, Those are what we call the gross motor domain, and there's a sequence for that as well. And we need to know what is normal so that people will not ask me why the 4-month-old is not crawling, because a 4-month-old is not supposed to crawl. So there's a sequence and there's also a timing. Now I will come back to the timing later, but the most important thing for me to quickly say so that I don't forget is that there's an average timing for everything. Okay, there's an average time we expect. It's not a specific dates or time week on the dot, but it's always an average, just like every other thing in life. So most of us, our height, there's an average height. Some people a little bit taller, some people a little bit shorter, but it's just like a continuous thing. But it doesn't mean that those of us who are short are abnormal. It doesn't mean those of us who are tall are abnormal, but just a range. But then they say where some people will go above the usual range that will worry everybody. So that is the same thing when it comes to development. So there's an average timing for achieving each of those milestones. So some people may be a little bit early and it is fine. Some people a little bit later and it's fine. But if you are not really going too far from the average, timing, that is when we as pediatricians, we are going to worry. So this is why I just joining. I'm talking about development in children, and you can see this is something I like to talk about because that's my field. All right. Now, so I was talking about the domains. There are different aspects of development. Most parents tend to worry about the two. They worry about gross motor and language. Okay, so they talk whether the child is working or not working, or the child is talking or not talking. But there are other ones, okay? So gross motor is the one most of us are familiar with, the use of the legs. That is gross motor. The second one is fine motor. Fine motor has to do with the use of the hands. So gross motor, legs. Fine motor, hands. I'm trying to say it in a simple way for us as parents. Okay, it's a little bit more technical than that, but for parents level, this is a very simple way to remember them. So gross motor, the legs, fine motor, the hands. Then of course we talk about language, talking, and when we talk about language, parents tend to focus on the talking, but there are actually other aspects of language that many people don't access, but that is understanding. We call it receptive language. Ability of the child to understand what you say. It actually comes first before the child can actually talk back, which is the expressive domain. So when we talk about language, you can actually break them into two and say receptive language, expressive language. The same thing for the motor. We can actually put the motor together and say just motor, or you can break them down into gross motor and fine motor. So those are the different areas of development. I hope you are still following me. And then we now have the what we call personal, social, and self-help skills. This is about interaction, the ability of the child to play and to interact with other children and to do things for themselves. So sometimes we can put them together, sometimes we break them. Some people like to put personal, social, and some people like to put the self-help skills separately. Some of us like to put the play separately, but sometimes some of us just join them all together, but they are just one area. And so it's talk about how the child is able to become independent, do things for themselves. Can they feed themselves? Can they use the spoon? Can they go to the toilet without using nappies anymore? Can they go to poo by themselves, go to wee by themselves? Those are what we call self-help skills. Can they take off their clothes? Can they put on their clothes? Those are developmental domains under the personal, social / self-help skills / adaptive skills, whatever name you like. Of course, there are two other domains that people don't tend to remember, but because they are just static, they are either present or absent. So we talk about vision, the ability of the child to see. The child can see from birth. It's amazing to me how many times we get questions about when do children start to see. Children can see from the day they were born. They can see you. They can see your breast. Okay, but they tend to be short-sighted. But vision is always supposed to be present, and when it's not present, it worries us. It's a milestone, even though many people don't remember it because most of the time it's either there or not there, but most of the time it's there. And also another one is hearing, the ability of the child to hear. So again, hearing, we expect it to be present from birth, and it is always there as well, present or absent. But so altogether we have about 6 domains which I've mentioned. So we talk about the gross motor, legs; fine motor, use of the hands; vision, ability to see; hearing, ability to hear. Of course, we talk about language, which can be receptive language, ability to understand; expressive language, ability to talk. And then we talk about self-help skills, ability to do things for themselves, and also personal social interaction, and social interaction with others, including play and all that. So those are the different domains, the big areas that we look for a child to develop, to acquire skills, and then there, for us to know that this child is developing well, what we normally use as yardstick or as a measuring tool are what we call the milestones. So the milestones help us to know whether development is on course or not. Our article on our website is about your child development on course, and I realized that article, we wrote it from the point of view of when should you worry about development. So some of us worry because you don't even know what is normal. So that's why I decided to take this webinar. So I tell you what is normal first, then when you read the article, because that article is meant to be a screening for you to know when to come to pediatricians. We don't want you to start worrying unless it is something significant behind, or the child is significantly delayed. All right, so that is the name of that article, is your child development on course. You can check it out on www.askthepediatricians.com. But today I'm going to focus more on what is normal. So I've told us development is sequential, it tends to be cephalocauda, it has a average timing, and there are milestones for which we check. And when we check, we are not checking only in one area. We're supposed to check in all those 6 or more domains that I've mentioned to you. We're supposed to check in all of them, though I know parents tend to focus more on just the talking or the walking, but there are more to development than walking, crawling, or talking. All right, so I'm going to give us some of those common milestones that we normally tend to ask about, just for us to know what are those common ones. You don't need to know more than 4 or 5 for each of them. Those are the ones you need to remember. Of course, if you want to check, we have a lot of articles, we have a lot of information online for you to check. But let's just talk about the common ones. So when should a child be able to do this? When is a normal time? That is the key word. But I always like to stress that when we say normal time, we are talking about the average. We're talking about the 50 percentile. We're talking about the 50th center. We're talking about the median age, mode age, mean age. Bottom line, we're talking about the age where 50% of children will do those things. It's very important for me to stress it, because a lot of parents worry unnecessarily, because some children and some people also worry us again that my child is already doing this thing so early. What am I supposed to worry? So some children will always do things earlier than this timing I'm going to tell us. Some who do it a little bit later. So we are not worried whether they're a little bit earlier or a little bit later than the average, which is what we normally tell you. We only worry when they actually don't do things as what we call the cut-off age. And for each of those domains, I'm going to tell you the cut-off age when you should come and see us as pediatricians. Okay, so let's talk about the most common domain that everybody loves. Let's talk about the gross muscle. So I don't know whether you can see my slide. Let me just take off the, yeah, okay. So so I'm showing us a picture that kind of tell us the common gross motor developmental milestones. Okay, so the first milestone we tend to look out for in gross motor is the neck control. So when babies are born, their neck just go anywhere, but by 3 months, most babies should have neck control. They should be able to keep that neck standing still, So let me take off the slide so I can show you. So when babies are born, the neck just fall anyhow. So, but by 3 months, when we pull the baby up, the neck should come up with the rest of the body. It should not be lagging behind. So the way we normally do it is that I always tell parents to do this for me sometimes when they're trying to help me to decide whether their baby has neck control. Just grab your baby by the two hands and pull them. If you pull them, if the baby doesn't have neck control, when the baby is coming to the sitting position, the head will just fall backwards. That means that child doesn't have neck control. But if the child has neck control, when you pull them, the head comes with the rest of the body. So that is normal. All right. So neck control is averagely 3 months. So by 5 to 6 months, they begin to roll over, roll from back to front, front to back. By 6 months, they begin to sit in what we call sitting with support, what they call in this slide tripod. Basically, baby will sit, but they can't sit straight. You have to support them with some pillows and all that. And then by 8 months, they can sit with their backs very straight. There's no need for pillow. They can just sit very well. Most of them will start to crawl by 9 months, and then by 1 year they begin to walk. They begin to walk, though they may not walk perfectly. They are still not very balanced, but they can start to walk. And by 15 months, they can actually walk on their own very well. By 18 months, they start to run. That's when you begin to run after them. And by 2 years, they begin to jump. They can even go up and down the steps. And 3 years, they can ride a tricycle, the ones that you put some something to support the pedals. But by 4 years, they can hop. And then by 5 years, they're able to ride their home bike. So these are the milestones. The one most of you tend to like to ask. Neck control is 3 months. Sitting with support, let's just say 6 months. Then sitting without support, 8 months. Crawling, 9 months. I'll come back to crawling. Standing, 11 months. 12 months, walking 12 months, walking very well without, falling a lot, 15 months, 18 months running, stairs, jumping, 2 years. You don't have to remember everything, but you can always go check on our website. Now, crawling, a note of warning, some children don't crawl. They don't crawl at all. So I usually don't worry a lot when parents come to tell me, oh, my baby is 10 months, it's not yet crawling. I don't worry about it because I know some children do not crawl. So some children actually do what we call bottom shuffling. So they move with their bum. They don't go on their hands and feet to crawl. They actually shuffle with their bum buttocks. So those children, they will not crawl. And for children who actually move with their bum, we also find out that they tend to walk later because they are just so comfortable with that position that they don't feel they need to get up and walk. So sometimes they may not walk until 23 months, and that is still normal for them. So that is gross muscle. So when we say the average age of walking is 12 months, remember some children will do it a little bit earlier and some children will do it a little bit later. I will start to tell you what we call the cut-off age when you need to come and see the pediatrician. But a very good rule of the thumb for remembering the cut-off age, if you don't remember, is that if a child, at the time they should be doing a new milestone, if that child is not yet doing the one before that's the new one, don't get confused, then that is the cut-off age. Let me quickly come down. So neck control is 3 months, and sitting with support is 6 months. If at 6 months the child is not yet doing the one before the one we expect for that 6 months, which is neck control, that is when you should seek help. So if a child doesn't have neck control at 3 months, I will not worry about it because I may feel like this child is a little bit delayed. But when I now expect the child to do the next milestone, which is 6 months for sitting with support, if the child is still not even doing the neck control, the one before, at the age for the sitting, then that means that neck control is really delayed. I hope that is clear. So that is the easiest way to remember the cutoff age. So if a child is supposed to be sitting with some support, let's say at without support, let's say 8 months, and baby is supposed to be crawling at 9 months. If by 9 months the child is still not able to sit without support, because which is what comes before the crawling. So you expect the child to crawl at 9 months, but the child is not crawling. That's not even a problem. But the one before the crawling, that is sitting without support. If the child is still not able to do that, at that 9 months, we expect the child to now be crawling. That is when you should see a pediatrician, because that means that sitting is really now delayed. Okay, it is now delayed. So most children, like I told you now, walking is 12 months, and then walking very steadily is 15 months, and then running is 18 months. So at the time we expect the child to be running at 18 months, if the child is not yet walking, then that is when walking has become delayed, which is why most of the time we always tell you, don't come to us until your child is not walking at 18 months. So in other words, we give the child the gap in between the two milestones. But when we expect a new milestone, the one before that one is not yet even achieved, then that one before has now become delayed. So that is why walking is delayed at 18 months, because it is at 18 months we expect the child to start running. And yet, if the child is still not walking at 18 months, then that walking has become delayed. But if the child is not walking at 12 months, I'm not going to worry. I'll just, maybe this is one of those ones that may be a little bit later. So I want to give the child benefits of the doubt and give the child a little bit more time. But when I now expect the child to start running and the child is still not yet even walking, then walking has become delayed. If you get that, I think you've gotten everything I need to tell you. So you've understood everything then. So but let me go on. So that is gross motor. So this is another picture. See, as you can see, the baby has birth, very, just lying flat, they barely move. Then by the age of 2 months, they're already putting their head up. At 3 months, the neck is up. That is neck control. And then 5 months, you can see them rolling. 6 months, you can see the sitting, the tripod seat, which is the sitting with support. And 8 months, you can see the sitting without support, and then crawling around 9 months, and then cruising is also around 9 months when they stand and hold the table, 9 to 10 months, and then you can see the child walking by a year. Again, just to let us know the normal gross motor milestones. Most of us are actually fine as long as they're walking by 18 months and all that. Most of us don't worry about the other milestones like running, crawling. Most of the time they just get into school and we assume they will do PE and they will do all that. But some children may still struggle with those ones, and those ones tend to come to us. Let's talk about fine motor. Fine motor is the use of the hand. So when babies around 4 months, they begin to reach. So you see them reaching with their whole hand to grab things, and they can hold a rattle by 3 months and shake the rattle. And then by 6 months, they can transfer. So if you give them something in the right hand, they can move it to the left hand and vice versa. But by 9 months, they can pick up tiny stuff like a button or a crisp, a small round object. They can pick them up with just the thumb and the forefinger. And then by 15 months, they can start to scribble, and they can build a block of 2 towers. The amount of towers they build with the blocks we use it to also gauge the age of children. By 18 months, they can do 3 blocks. By 2 years, they can do 6 blocks. And then by 2 years, they begin to do straight lines. It's not just scribble. They can do straight line, vertical and horizontal. By 3 years, they can do a circle. A 3-year-old should be able to copy a circle, and they can do 9 blocks. And so then 4 years, they can copy cross, and 5 years, a triangle. So that's how. So sometimes when children are in my clinic, I just give them a pencil and a paper, and then I ask them to copy straight line, circle, triangle, cross, and that alone can give me the age of the child. I can also ask them to draw a person, then the number of the body parts can also tell me. That's how we developmental pediatrician do developmental assessment. Most parents don't tend to ask us about the use of the hands. I think they don't even worry. The only one they ask us, my child is not writing, it's not copy 1, 2, 3. It's actually not part of developmental milestone. That's something we expect them to learn in school. But at least they should be able to draw the circle, draw the lines and stuff. Then let's talk about language. This is another one people tend to ask us a lot. And I guess people sometimes tend to ask us more for the expressive language, whereas they don't tend to worry about the understanding, which is the receptive language. But things you can use under receptive language is like turning to their name. Most children should be able to turn to their name by around 9 months old. So if you call their name, they know their name, they would turn. So it's a very, and that's important actually when we're looking at things like autism and stuff like that. But a key, what I normally tell parents, the language one, I always teach parents the rules of the term, and that is one word, 1 year. A 1 year old should be able to say one single word: mama, baba, car, biscuit, hallelujah, what, amen, whatever common or the name of their brother or their sister, they should have single words. Most of them will have more than one, but at least they should have one single word. But most of them have like 3 to 5. Then by the age of 2 years, they should be combining two words together. That is the way to remember the milestones for language. By the age of 2 years, they should be able to combine two words together. And let me just quickly chip in here in case I forget that if a child is not talking, the first thing we want to check is their hearing. A child needs to hear to talk. So children must be able to hear. And the fact that a child is babbling does not mean they can hear. A deaf child can babble. So they must be able to hear before they can talk. So if your child is not talking, for those of you who have come to me, you will know that I always tell you, have you done a hearing test? And some of you tell me, oh, I know the child can hear because if I put on music, even though it's in the, if I put on Coco Melon or Peppa Pig, even though the child is in the most distant room in the house, the child will start coming running, which is also good. It's a clinical assessment, but most of us, we like it documented because hearing can be present, but it can be mild hearing loss, moderate hearing loss, and all that. So some of us like it's properly documented, have a proper hearing test to be sure. But so if a child is not talking, we want to be sure the child can hear first. So always good to do hearing. Ideally, we should be screening all our children for their vision and their hearing. We should be doing it routinely. I know we're not yet doing it in Nigeria, but in some countries like the UK, for example, all children will have a newborn hearing screen. And then when they go to school, they also have another hearing and eye screen. And then if they pick up anything, they will refer them for further testing to confirm it. So language, one word, 1 year, 2 years, two combination of words. So phrases, mommy sweets, mommy water, things like that. Then 3 years, they should be speaking sentences. A 3-year-old should be combining three words together. And then by 4-year-old, a 4-year-old should talk like an adult. I should have no difficulty understanding what a 4-year-old is saying, even though I've never met a 4-year-old. My time is running. Let me quickly go to the self-help skills. So self-help skills, social smile, 6 to 8 months, baby smile. And when we say social smile, that's not the one that smile in their sleep, that they are seeing angels like my mommy would say. We're talking about smiling because they recognize you as their mother or their father. That is social smile. But 3 months old, they know their mother, they know you different from other people in the house. By 6 to 7 months, they have what we call stranger anxiety. So they don't want people who they don't know to carry them. That is normal. And then by 18 months, children should start to do what we call imitation. They should start to copy you. When you make silly faces, they will also copy you back, things like that. By 10 months, they should be waving goodbye. It's not everything that is on this slide. I'm just telling you some of them. 10 months, they should be able to wave goodbye. It's a very important milestone. Also, at around there, 10 months, begin to put finger feeding. They begin to put food in their mouth. And then by 1 year, they start to use the spoon. By 2 years, some of them start to get dry, potty training. They can go to toilet to pee. They will tell you when they need to pee. By 3 years, we tell them to be toilet trained completely. Though they may still need help with wiping, but by 4 years old, they should be able to wipe by themselves. And then by 5 years they should be able to dress independently and all that. So these are what we call self-help skills. And there are some other things like play, which I will not go into. But these are the different milestones. So milestones is not just walking, running, or talking. Those are the two areas parents tend to worry about. All the other ones, the fine motor skills, the self-help skills, they are as important as well. And we as parents, we need. So if you need to go through this slide, you can always watch this video again. Or if you go online, there are many of those milestones. And another one, in your immunization card or your red book or green book, every different countries call it different names, but there's always a page, and I think Lagos State also has this in the immunization card or child book or child record that they call it. There's a page for developmental milestones. So there's a page where you can check what is expected for each of those age groups so that you yourself you can also track. Ideally, our nurses, our healthcare workers, when you go for immunization, the same way they are doing the immunization, the same way they are checking the weight of the child, they should also be checking the developmental milestones. It's something they are not yet doing very well, but we are pushing for it. We pediatricians, we are pushing for it, and we hope very soon all our children should be screened in places like UK and US, where every child has their own pediatrician. Developmental screening, what we call surveillance, is something that our health visitors, nurses should be doing. So they have specific time of the year, maybe at 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years, they will come and screen the child, make sure that the child's development is on course. Also, we also expect every child to be screened for autism by the time they're about between 16 to 31 months, because autism is becoming so common now. So if you go to Autism Speak or just type MCHAT. If you type MCHAT screening, it will bring it out for you and you can just fill it. There are about 20 questions, yes or no, and it will tell you whether your child has low risk, moderate risk, or high risk for autism. These are things we should be doing. If you come to our Facebook group, the link is there. We can always show you as well how to do your screening. And all these milestones, we have the paper on our Facebook group. It's also on our website. You can check them out. Now, before I round up in my last 5 minutes left, when should you come to see a pediatrician? Because a lot of parents worry, because like I told us, what I've just given us now, all those ages, they are average. Some children will do it a little bit earlier, 1 or 2 months earlier. Some children will do it a little bit later. So that is still within normal. So if your child is not working at 12 months, I will not say your child is delayed. If your child is not working at 14 months, I will not say the child is delayed. So that is still within normal. But there comes to what we call a cut-off age where we think there's a delay in that child's development. And that is when we want you to come and see us as pediatricians. So, like I've mentioned of what, like I've told us, like if a child is not doing the milestone that is ahead of the one for their current age, then that child is delayed in that particular area. Now, delay can be in one area. A child can be slow with walking, but talking normal, doing every other thing normal with their hands and with their self-help skills. That is what we call isolated delay in one area. Or a child can be walking but not yet talking, but every other thing else is fine. It's just the talking. So that is isolated speech delay and all that. But sometimes children can be delayed in all of the milestones, or two, at least two or more. So a child is not walking, is also not talking, is also not potty trained at 3 years. So that is what we call global developmental impairments, or we used to call it global developmental delay. So then sometimes some children do things in an abnormal version. In other words, they do things out of the normal sequence. So, for example, some children will start talking sentences. They will copy words or sentences from the television, but they can't even say the mommy, they can't even say daddy. They don't call them mommy, they don't call daddy, but they can repeat what they heard on the TV. They can repeat a whole book for you. That is what we call a kind of abnormal sequence of a deviation from normal. Okay, we tend to see that in children with autism, for example. They tend to do things in the reverse order, kind of. So that also tell us it is also abnormal because it's a out of normal sequence. But most children, they are delayed, so they don't get to they are not yet doing what they should be doing for their age. Okay, so that is delay, and it can be delay in one area, or it can be delayed in multiple areas, or then you can have the deviation. Okay, so those are the different things you can have. So for us as pediatricians, if your child is not walking by 18 months, please come and see us. Okay, come and see a pediatrician. Your child is not walking by 18 months. But you don't have to wait to 18 months. If the child is also not sitting, so that's why some of you, when you ask that question, I always ask, is your child sitting, is your child crawling, is your child doing the other milestones? So if the child is also not yet crawling, you don't have to wait. If the child is not crawling by or the child, sorry, if the child is not sitting, because some children don't crawl, but if the child is not sitting without support at 9 months, at 1 year, you have to come and see the pediatrician as well. So you can always come and see us earlier, but most people always talk about the walking part. Also the talking, like I said, speech therapy, they expect your child to at least have single words at 1 year, double words, phrases at 2 years. So if your child does not have any words at all at the age of 2 years, you have to come and see. You can first see a speech therapist, okay? And then the speech therapist may want you to come and see the pediatrician as well. So usually, if there's only one area of development that is affected, we are happy for you to see the therapist in that area. So if your child is only having speech delay, it is okay to go and see a speech therapist. If your child is only having gross motor delay, you can go see a physiotherapist. If your child is not using their hands and all that, you can see occupational therapist, or they are not playing. But if your child is having two areas that is not working, not talking, that is a pediatrician. You have to see a pediatrician, preferably a developmental pediatrician. In countries where they don't have developmental pediatricians, you can see the pediatric neurologist or any pediatrician that has interest in development, because it's not every pediatrician that is very skilled when it comes to child development. But at least if you see them, they will know who to send you to. All right. So I hope we've all understood normal development. My focus is on normal development because that is when parents worry a lot. And I've given you some of the milestones that you can remember. Let me just pop them up again. But like I said, if you go to our website or if you go to our Facebook group, you will see all these milestones. So if you just Google them, they are all online. They are things you can remember. Or if you just look at your baby's book, red book, green book, whatever book that they usually document your child's weights and immunizations, you will see there as well. So they are everywhere. So don't memorize them. You can always check them and know where they are. So the most important thing is just be patient with children. Some of us are always impatient. So people start coming to ask, my baby it's 5 months, my baby is not yet rolling. Be patient. Okay. Most of the time you have to wait for the next milestone timing before you now say your child is delayed. So it is only when at the next milestone, when your child should have another milestone, the child is not yet doing even the one before then, that is when you can now say, oh, there's something wrong. All right. So as I round up, the brain, very important. And that is why nothing must go wrong with the brain at all. And we've talked about this. It starts from pregnancy. Please, mothers, eat well. Take your folic acid. Folic acid deficiency can lead to the fact the baby not having any brain at all. What we call an encephaly. I've seen babies born without any brain. So that is folic acid deficiency, or they are born with spinal bifida or encephalocele. Abnormal formation of the brain can happen due to folic acid deficiency. So take your folic acid. When you're pregnant, please register for antenatal care. The care of the baby, when we say you should deliver VSCS and the baby is getting distressed, it is not a matter whether you are going to deliver a baby or not. You will still deliver a baby, but you may have caused damage to the brain. So the baby will be born, but the baby is brain damaged. brain injured, that baby is going to have problem with the developmental milestones. So when your pediatrician, no, not pediatrician, obstetrician are telling you that please, we need to deliver this baby now, please agree with them and let them take that baby out quickly, because we don't want the injuries to the brain. The brain is the most fragile organ, and the brain doesn't recover. If there's a part of the brain dies, that part is gone forever. So the brain doesn't heal like that. So we really need to protect the brain, which is why you must deliver in the hospital. They must take care of the brain. When your baby is born, please let them take care of your baby in the hospital. Your baby is sick, meningitis, sepsis, they can cause brain damage. Jaundice, this is why we work about jaundice. It's not proper water issue. They have to take the level. There's a level of jaundice that causes brain damage. That child is going to have developmental disabilities. So please, all these are important. All this one, we just allow our baby to be falling anyhow, putting them on the couch and they are falling. You're causing brain injury. Brain injury, that a normal baby can end up having disability just from falling. I see a lot of mothers joking around about the baby falling and taking it as, no, it is not a joke. We're talking about brain damage here. So please protect your baby's brain. The brain is the key to development. Once there's an injury to the brain, development is not going to go normal at all, and we're only going to be dealing with that, and we cannot recover the brain. That is the problem. It's not like we can't replace it and we can't heal what has been damaged. So please, let's make sure that our children's brain are protected at all costs. So if you have any questions on child development, normal, abnormal, brain, all the issues I've touched upon, feel free to go to Ask the Paediatrician Facebook group, and let me put the comments there again and ask the questions there, and I'll be happy to answer them. So I hope you've learned a lot about child development, and I look forward to your questions in our Facebook group. And say, like, come your way, or one of my colleagues come your way again to talk about child when we begin to talk about another important topic that has to do with the health of our children. This is me saying, keep monitoring your children's health and keep maintaining good nutrition, and make sure that your baby's brain is preserved at all costs. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and it is bye from me. Bye-bye.
Are you a mother, father, or you are involved in caring for children? If yes, then listen to Ask the Paediatricians every Thursday by 10 a.m. for insightful discussion on popular child health topics such as dangerous child health practices, immunization, infant feeding, developmental milestones, and so much more. You also get to ask questions on these topics and listen to answers to real-life child health issues by a pediatrician. Ask the Paediatricians Foundation is devoted to health education and information of parents and caregivers of children in the community to support you in raising healthy children. Don't miss Ask the Paediatricians with Dr. Gbemi, because it's informative, educative, and interactive. Ask the Paediatricians Hour, the program for caring parents.